Hello everyone, this is part 35 of What If Naruto Was Madara's Brother, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. 4 weeks later, Tajima carefully stepped inside the tent occupied by his son only to see his child currently surrounded by his advisors while they all looked at the rough map of the land of water. He waited and simply observed his son listening to the suggestions while offering some of his own every now and then. There was so much focus and determination in his hardened eyes that made Tajima proud and sad at the same time. Proud of the man his son had become and sad for all that he had endured and continued to endure in this war. The past few weeks had not been easy either. The land of fire was completely devastated by the Otsutsuki, majority of the population was or missing, there was large-scale destruction of critical resources and there was acute food shortage. A phenomenon the residents of this nation had never thought possible. Already 2 minor rebellions from the civilians had to be forcefully put down as the people blamed the only one they could for their misery. Their king. The king who lost his kingdom. Tajima felt his blood boil every time he heard people whispering such things about his son every now and then. The ninjas and fighting men understood just how difficult it was to defeat the Otsutsuki, but the civilians were another matter. They had never faced so much hardship and pain before. It had gotten to the point that many even believed that being ruled by the daimyo was far better than letting Naruto be their leader. Yet despite all this scorn and mayhem, never once had Tajima seen his son waver in any manner. The boy had tried his best to maintain the peace among humanity while doing all he could to stem its suffering. But the scale of destruction and misery that the Otsutsuki had left behind was too large for any man to eradicate alone. Even so, Naruto had continued pushing forward while also preparing his 245 men for the final assault on the land of water. Tajima looked at the 9 people currently standing around his son, warriors who had proven their worth on the battlefield and had chosen to follow their king into hell itself. The Uchiha leader was not surprised to find Shisui, Itachi and Mikoto be present because for as long as he could remember these kids had always been by his son's side. He still remembered the moment when Itachi returned to join the rest of the army alongside the queen. The boy had been saddened when he learned how Kagami and Takeshi's death in battle but had wordlessly joined Naruto when told of his plan to assault the land of water. Kakashi Hatake and Danzo Shimura were sons of loyal Uchiha bannermen, so it was no wonder they too followed after their king. The 2 boys were good fighters, but more importantly they could lead men into battle. The Uzumaki siblings, Mito and Nagato, were also given leadership roles, with Tajima having the feeling that they were going to play a crucial part in Naruto's plan. Last 2 members were Hanzo and Mifune, the most experienced warriors among the entire force that was going to invade the land of water. We put up the decoys here, here and here. Armed units acting as a fog screen to make the enemy focused on the coastal front, directed Naruto, as he placed his finger on some of the key areas serving as landing zones of the land of water. A sound strategy, but one bound to be discovered sooner or later. Even if we make the decoys engage the enemy in full force, they will get wiped out easily. Then the ruse will be up, my king, advised Hanzo, earning a nod of consent from Mifune as well. And then the enemy will know we're there, deduced Itachi. We'll be ambushed by their entire remaining army, added Mikoto grimly. If that happens, then even with our elite force and the Kyuubi will be at an added disadvantage. The enemy will have numbers, the knowledge of the terrain. Combine that with the power of their queen, realized Kakashi, some hesitation already creeping into the young boy's voice as he looked at his one-eyed king. It is AS mission. As the last elite warriors of humanity, we must be willing to take all risks, including the of our lives, for the future of our race, emphasized Danzo fiercely, his dark eyes demanding the same level of conviction from the older warriors in the room. Tajima didn't miss the tiny smirk that graced Naruto's lips as he stared at the son of Tobi Shimura. That particular clan had always been Uchiha loyalists and were one of the most fiercest group of warriors. And while they were yet to produce shinobi of the same caliber of the Uchiha and Senju, their fighters had a sense of determination and purpose greater than either clan. Madara had recognized the same talent when he recruited Danzo in his personal guard, and the Hokage's youngest brother also saw the talent which Danzo Shimura had. But still, said Mito hesitantly, but was see off when Naruto stepped forward and laid a hand on Danzo's shoulder. Well said, Danzo. It is exactly as you believe, which it is why I appoint you in charge of the defense unit that shall protect the Special Operations Team, said Naruto proudly, as he placed a piece across the map surrounding a structure that Tajima couldn't decipher. Whatever it was, it could be significant to the success of this entire mission, as Danzo visibly paled on realizing the responsibility being laid on him. My king, I am not worthy of this honor. I'm not the strongest man for this task, said Danzo nervously, earning a faint smile from the monarch. No, you're not, but you are the most determined and fiercest ninja in this room, and I can see the desire to win in your eyes. While most of us in this room are worried about the odds, the countermeasures and whatnot, you are only focused to achieve victory at all costs. I respect that conviction, and it is why I believe that you can do this task. However, the question here is not that you're worthy or otherwise, but will you do it? Asked Naruto calmly. Tajima saw the young Danzo glance at the map for a few brief moments before looking back at the king with an unwavering sense of conviction and fierceness. I will defend the Special Operations Team until my breath, and even after that, promised Danzo. As Naruto smiled and gave a proud nod to Danzo, there was another person that caught Tajima's eye. The said boy had clenched his fists so tightly and there was great turmoil visible in his eyes. But soon enough, he too stepped forward and knelt before the king. I request you to assign me the command of the decoy army. I will buy as much time as I can for all of you by keeping the enemy engaged, requested Kakashi. Kakashi, do you know what you're asking for? You're the only son that your father has left. With the Hatake clan all but wiped out, it is imperative that you come back from this mission alive at all costs, advised Naruto patiently, and saw a faint guilt visible in the young boy's eyes. My brother Ken vowed to defend Madara-sama and our nation at all costs. When the time came, he himself without hesitation. I couldn't even move back then, but he acted and for what he believed in. For honor, I never truly understood my clan's motto, but I think I understand it now. It is why I must do this, more than that I am the only one who can do it. The strongest in this room must help the king eliminate the Otsutsuki queen, explained Kakashi sincerely. Tajima watched the slight tension that came on Naruto's face as he looked at Kakashi and then at the ships stationed near the coasts of the enemy nation. That entire coast was full of enemy figures, and Tajima's years of experience made him realize what leading the decoy army meant. Sakumo was badly injured, and his eldest son Ken had protecting Madara in their first encounter with the Otsutsuki. The Hatake clan was all but wiped out save for a handful members, including Kakashi's sister, Kiara. Entrusting Kakashi with this responsibility could only lead to one outcome for the boy, and Naruto knew it. So did Kakashi, if the conviction mixed with resignation that was clearly visible in those eyes. It's a true shame when the young ones of today try to overestimate themselves. Boy, it will take real skill and experience to keep the enemy focused with the decoy army for long. While you have guts, you are not fit for this task. Stay by the king's side and protect him at all costs. I will lead the decoy army, declared Mifune calmly. But, argued Kakashi, however he was forced to stay silent when Naruto raised his hand. Kakashi, you shall help Danzo in protecting the special operations team. Mifune, you shall lead the decoy army. That is my final decision, concluded Naruto. Danzo placed a hand on Kakashi's shoulder and took him backwards as the king gave a firm but thankful nod to the veteran samurai commander. Tajima didn't miss the growth in his son's eyes for Mifune, which only earned a short nod from the older leader. Nagato and Mito shall lead the special operations team. I entrust the success of this plan to the Uzumaki clan, said Naruto seriously. We will do all that we can, however time will be of great essence if we are to succeed, cautioned Nagato. I agree, said Mito, earning a grim nod from the king. Noted. Hanzo, you shall command the majority of our forces and lead the vanguard. Engage and eliminate any additional forces that Hinata Otsutsuki might have at her disposal. While I, Shisui, Itachi, Mikoto alongside the Kyuubi will go ahead to eliminate the Otsutsuki leader and her top officers, commanded Naruto in his composed but firm tone. The chorus of affirmative but grim nods received by the king was more than enough to portray how tense the situation was. You can come in now, father. Tajima blinked and saw his one-eyed son now staring at him with a faint but amused smile. The rest of the group offered short bows to the two Uchihas before making quick exits. As Tajima stepped inside, he saw the dark shadows beneath his son's eye. His skin was becoming more and more pale courtesy of his lack of sleep. How are the preparations going? Asked Tajima silently. As well as they could be. It's only thanks to the information I managed to glean out of the one Otsutsuki prisoner I freed that we even have an idea about their homeland, answered Naruto hesitantly. Don't underwrite yourself, Naruto. What you did with Kakashi was a sound choice. The Hatake clan is on the verge of extinction. As their overlords, the Uchiha will forever bear shame if they go extinct. More than enough clans are already gone, lamented Tajima. He stopped when a firm hand was placed on his shoulder and was even more surprised when he saw a melancholic smile on his son's face. Don't dwell on it, father. You'll regret it, advised Naruto calmly. But, protested Tajima weakly, but was silenced when Naruto looked at him with a smile Tajima had long thought lost. If you regret it, then it will consume you. Take it from someone who has lived a life full of regrets. I couldn't save my mother, my brothers, my beloved aunt, my friends, my kingdom or my people. If I look at my failures, then all that is left for me is eternal darkness, yet all I can do is move forward as best as I can. I don't know if my choices are right or wrong, nor can I change the past. All I can do, all anyone can do is just fight till their last breath, explained Naruto patiently. How can you, after all that has happened? Asked Tajima hesitantly. It's because I made a promise to Izuna, confessed Naruto, a faraway look ever present in his lone eye. Izuna? Questioned Tajima. Be happy, little brother. Those were my brother's last words, his last wish. I owe it to him, to give it my all to be happy so that his death does not go in vain. All my life, no matter what pain came in my way, I never gave up, not because I didn't want to. There were so many times when I thought death would be better, but even Izuna gave me the strength to face life head-on even till this day. I will never give up so that one day I can achieve that happiness for which my brother gave his life. A small smile came on Tajima's face as he saw shadows of his 3 sons standing around his youngest son. Humanity is not finished yet, father. As long as even one of our people keeps on fighting, the war will never be lost. Nobody knows what the future holds, yet I ask you to believe in me one more time and I will save our people. I promise, said Naruto confidently. Tajima nodded without hesitation and watched as Naruto went into the other corner of the tent. The Uchiha patriarch bit his lip as he wondered whether to tell his son about the fate of Shizuka and the 2 unborn children. This issue had troubled Tajima for weeks as the small band of survivors whom had fled to the Uchiha's secret island had cut off all communications with the outside world. It might also be possible that they all perished on sea or were discovered and by the enemy. Naruto had already made his peace with the fact that his unborn children from the priestess were he never talked about them, but the pain was easily visible in his eyes. Should I really give him hope only to snatch it away later on? I don't know which is more crueler, keeping the fact that his children could be alive or tell him the truth only to discover they have perished. Thought Tajima worriedly. Tajima couldn't help but feel trapped and guilty, which was why he approached his son once more even as the young king was busy sharpening his ancestral sword. Naruto, there is something I need to ask you. It's a bit personal, stated Tajima hesitantly. Naruto didn't miss the nervousness on Tajima's face and couldn't help but feel a little wary, as this was far from the normal behavior of his father, who was always stern and composed. Tell me, encouraged the young monarch. You never told me about the priestess. Tajima cringed when for a moment those words hit his son like a lightning bolt, eliciting an extremely pained look which was soon replaced by barely concealed remorse. Madara told you? Asked Naruto quietly. No. The king blinked and looked up at his father in surprise. There were only a handful people who knew about Shizuka and the unborn royal children she was carrying in her belly. You know something and I would like to be briefed right now, stated Naruto tersely. Tajima flinched again on the commanding tone, but it was the intense gaze of that lone eye that made the Uchiha patriarch hesitate. But in the end, he had to take a decision and face the consequences that followed. It all happened. Naruto listened without blinking as Tajima revealed the fact that how the Uchiha men that Madara had placed around the holy temple laid down their lives and managed to evacuate Priestess Shizuka to Castle Tsukiyomi. He went on to even reveal the fact that Shizuka along with hundreds of refugees were further evacuated to the Uchiha's secret island. Tajima didn't hide anything and even confessed that he had kept this fact from Naruto because they had not received any communication from the survivors on that island and he didn't want to give Naruto any false hope. I'm sorry to have kept this secret from you, Naruto. I just confessed Tajima hesitantly, unable to meet his son's eyes. Thank you, father. Tajima blinked in surprise and looked up to see a lone tear fall from Naruto's eye, yet there was a relieved smile present on the king's face. Naruto. Tajima was even further surprised when Naruto gave him a firm hug, one which the father returned as he wrapped his arms around his youngest child. You saved them despite knowing their very existence can destroy our clan and this fragile kingdom. The old you would not have understood what they are to me, but you have changed, father, said Naruto happily, earning a tiny S on the head in return. Of course I did, Barker. They're my grandchildren. Besides, this war has taught me a lot, but most of all watching your journey through life has changed me. I cannot change the past, which is why I will do everything in my power to protect my family. As long as I and Madara live, nobody will harm those children. I promise, answered Tajima. Naruto gently broke the hug and Tajima was glad to see an happy smile on his child's face. I know. To be honest, soon it will also slowly come around to this reality and with Hashirama's help we might be able to make the Senjus accept the same, suggested Naruto. They better because we're not giving up on my grandchildren, warned Tajima seriously. Naori and Hikari. Naruto smiled as Tajima took a step back on hearing those words. It took the older man a moment to understand and even longer to open his lips to speak but no words came out. However, the swarm of tears that came in his eyes and his trembling hands said all that was in his heart. Naruto, you, whispered Tajima in a choked voice. If they are girls, we will name them after Hikari who gave me life and Naori who gave me the strength to live life. And if they are boys and since there'll only be two of them, then we will name them Izuna and Inashiro, Anabi and Yashiro, who were my beloved brothers. That is my choice, said Naruto with a smile. Tajima was left speechless even as tears continued to fall from his eyes, and all he could do was bow before this child and his unwavering spirit. Yes, my king, promised Tajima humbly. Naruto smiled as he placed Dawn at his hip and started walking towards the outside where a world full of challenges and threats awaited him. And yet, his smile never wavered. Leave the future to me, father. Tsunade sat in the open field atop the soft grass observing the shining moon in the sky. If she looked below the walls, she could see the residents of the capital were trying to restart their lives. Thanks to Lord Tajima's command, the capital had not been breached by the Otsutsuki and the damage to the city was minimal. It was also the last bastion for the survivors to take shelter in because of the availability of food, shelter and the protection of thousands of soldiers. She had not been a part of the battle that happened here. To be honest, a part of her felt glad for it because many good warriors for the victory achieved here and another part felt angry for she could have saved many of those warriors if she had been present. But that choice was never hers to make and her husband had deemed it fit to not include her in the battle. Just as he had decided not to include her in his mission to destroy the land of water. She understood why he was doing that, but it didn't make it any easier for her to stay behind while he risked his life. They had argued over it for so long that they stopped talking to each other for the past few days, even Tajima's attempt to make them reconcile failed. Instead, Naruto had kept himself busy with the preparations for his mission while Tsunade diverted her focus on taking care of the wounded, including Hashirama and Madara who were making a slow but definite recovery from the grave wounds suffered in battle. The distance created between them was not something either of them liked, but both were stubborn enough not to concede and attempt for an understanding. In that manner, the Uchiha and Senju made them act even more opposite. She froze when she felt another presence enter the garden she was currently sitting in, and that familiar aura only served to remind her that she had married in this very same place. Tsunade watched as her husband came beside her to gain a seat, but not long after he sprawled himself comfortably across the soft grass. A small luxury the overworked king could afford at the moment. You okay? he asked, with a gentle smile that only served to make her even more confused with her emotions. Have you thought about my suggestion of sending someone else to lead this mission? You are our king, we need you here, insisted Sunit, her hazel eyes burning with worry and hidden anger. He sighed and got up to face her and cupped her cheeks tenderly. I wish I could, but there is no one else strong enough. I cannot wait for Madara and Hashirama to get back to full strength because by that time the Otsutsuki will come back for vengeance, he explained, never once losing his cool. What of this child then? She asked solemnly, and he couldn't stop the guilt flooding through his heart on seeing her hand placed upon her growing belly. If only he could tell her how much he wanted to be by her side, to watch their child be born and grow, but for that to happen he had to fight. He had to be strong no matter how much it hurt. Have you thought of a name? She asked in a soft voice, her hopes and dreams bare for him to see. I haven't, yet, but if I can suggest something else, he said hesitantly, but was relieved when she gave him an encouraging smile as she took his hand and placed it upon her belly. You're his father. You can tell him anything, she said kindly with a smile, earning a surprised look from him for that statement. His. Are you sure? He asked uncertainly, making her chuckle. If the strong kicks I usually receive are any indication, then yes, she confirmed happily, which brought a warm smile on his face which greatly pleased her as well. Sunad watched him intensely stare at her belly with such happiness in his eyes which made her own worries about his upcoming mission fade just for now. I haven't thought of a name for you yet, but I will do everything in my power to give you the world which your mother and I never had. You will never have to take up arms as soon as you can stand, whispered Naruto. You will never fight meaningless battles and endure the horrors that we went through. Sunad clutched his own hand over belly as memories of the Clan Wars era came rushing back in her heart. She looked into his eyes and saw he too remembered that time. They both remembered their first battle, of facing each other, of the fear that had threatened to consume them, the horror and agony of watching their siblings be seized down before the very eyes, the pointless of that be. You will never have to suffer the way we did. She lost a brother that day, he lost 3. You will never have to fear being alone in this world because you will always have people who would do anything for you, he pledged. She felt his loneliness and could only imagine the burdens he carried his entire life. As AK, and then as a king. You will grow up with friends in times of peace and enjoy a life free of terror. And I know it deep in my heart that one day you shall surpass me, that you will be a far better man than I could ever hope to be, and no matter what, know this. He looked right into her eyes and this time there was no doubt in his gaze. I love you. Sunad froze even as her eyes widened in shock on hearing him say the words she had wanted to hear from him for so long. She waited for him to waver but he never did and continued looking into her eyes and even smiled. She kissed him fiercely even as tears slipped from her eyes and he returned the gesture with equal passion. You mean it? She asked breathlessly between K, and swelled with even more happiness when he sighed in defeat. Not at first, but you are quite stubborn, if I may say, he said with a slight chuckle, and blushed when she narrowed her eyes at him dangerously. Still, he didn't falter because he wanted her to know the whole truth instead of saying only what she wanted to hear. He owed her that honesty. What changed the way you thought about me? She asked hesitantly, afraid and eager at the same time for his answer. You fight for what you believe in with all your heart, I came to respect that strength. You stood by me despite all the trials we faced, you accepted me for the person I am but most importantly never allowed that to stop you from giving me the right advice. When I was a new king full of hesitation, you became the friend I needed. You proved yourself a better person than me when you accepted the existence of my unborn children with Shizuka, you saved my friendship with Kurama by giving me the right advice even if it meant becoming the attention of my misguided anger. You are carrying my child and even now I see a desire to protect my life in your eyes, even before I confessed my love for you. You are the most frustrating, stubborn woman I have ever known, and I love you for that, he confessed shyly with a faint blush tinting his fair cheeks. I never thought you'd feel what I feel for you, she confessed hesitantly, but her tearful smile negated any doubts from arising in her husband's heart. I'm hard to please, he whispered. What was that? She asked sharply, earning a nervous chuckle from him as he rubbed the back of his head. Nothing. It just takes me some time to get to know people, a childhood habit, he said with a nervous laugh, which made her sigh. You really think we have no other choice? She asked worriedly, and saw his smile disappear to be replaced by an iron gaze full of determination and conviction. It always amazed her how quickly he could go from being her friend to being her king. We have to. She bit her lip in worry even as her hands found his and she looked him right in the eye. Then do what must be done. He gave her a grave but determined nod in return. Tajima sat in the vast room alongside the bed where his eldest son was currently sleeping. Watching Madara's erratic breathing and painful groans made the Lord clench his fist. It pained him to see his strongest son be reduced to this pitiful state, and his only solace was the fact that Madara suffered so much pain in the defense of his people. Tsunade and the other medical ninjas had somehow managed to save the Hokage's life, but it would be weeks, if not months, before Madara recovered from his grave wounds. Naruto might have saved his brother by one of his eyes, but even before that Madara had suffered critical wounds that would take time to heal. Tajima observed his only other living son also present in the room, observing the vast city beneath them from the lone window. Snow fell like heavy rains from the skies, blanketing the Crimson Lands in a strange but distinct beauty, but for the Uchiha family it only created another set of problems. It's finally here, whispered Naruto, as he caught a few snowflakes in his gloved hand. How fares the city? Asked Tajima, and if the grim expression on his son's face was any indicator, then the answer would not be to Tajima's liking. We're holding for now. However, we are falling short of every critical resources. When the Otsutsuki lost the battle, they fled, but not before pillaging the remaining of our farmlands, granaries, water lakes, and even destroying whole villages. I've got more than 100,000 humans spread across these lands, but not enough food, water, and most importantly shelter to protect them from the cruel winter, said Naruto bitterly, his worry open for Tajima to see. You must send riders to search for resources, no matter how far, or we'll face a riot very soon, warned Tajima, even as Naruto clenched his fists. The Land of Wind never had much resources to begin with, and due to this war it's almost a wasteland now. The Land of Whirlpools is still under enemy occupation and in ruins. I have sent search parties to seize every resource available from the Land of Earth and Land of Lightning, but it will be weeks before they return. Till then, we have to keep the peace, explained Naruto. Then can't you wait to restore order to your subjects before marching towards the Land of Water? Asked Tajima, but deep down he already knew the answer, much to his disappointment. I can't. Right now the Otsutsuki are believing that they'll face an invasion and are preparing for the same. If we delay, they might see through our ruse and come back again to our lands. And this time, we don't have the strength to stop them. I have to do this if humanity is to survive past this winter, emphasized Naruto. Then let me come with you. I may not be as powerful as the Otsutsuki queen, but I can lead your men, insisted Tajima, which earned him a soft look from his son. I wish I could take you, father. But with Madara, Hashirama, Tsukumo and Dane gravely injured, you are my last capable supporter who can look after these people. Protect our people, no matter what, commanded Naruto. Tajima lowered his head, accepting the command but also relenting to his son's wish. He saw Naruto step away from the window and walk towards his sleeping brother's bed. The king stood at the edge observing his only living brother fight for his life. It was hard for him to see Madara in this state, but never once could he doubt that Madara would not pull through. It would take a lot more than the Otsutsuki to put Madara down. He could already imagine his brother getting back on his feet and still be eager for a good fight against the Otsutsuki. It brought a smile to his face, something which Tajima didn't miss. He sat on the bed and gently grasped Madara's hand. For a few moments, he waited as if expecting Madara would recognize his touch and wake up from his sleep, but the bitter truth was that the Hokage had broken most of his bones, his internal organs were a mess that Tsunade was trying to heal, but most of all the severe loss of B had directly hit his brain, rendering him in this state. The fact that even Hashirama was in a similar state did not ease Naruto's worries, for if the Otsutsuki queen could do something like that to Hashirama Senju, then she was a force to be feared. And he had to K her. She had done this to Madara, to Hashirama, and to all of mankind. Gently caressing his brother's hand, he looked at him with conviction in his eyes. I will K them all, Ni-san. I promise. Tajima was surprised when Naruto grabbed Madara's personal gunbai from the corner of the man's bed as he got up and turned to face Tajima. The Uchiha Lord was surprised when the king took out a sealed parchment from his pocket and presented it to him. Wordlessly, Tajima took it, and as he read through the contents of the royal decree he was left shocked. Are you sure about this? Asked Tajima hesitantly. The rational side of him knew it was a wise move, but the part of his heart that worried for his son knew exactly under what circumstances would this decree be carried out. Fight for the best. Hope for the worst, advised Naruto with his usual wise smirk, but Tajima saw right through him. You are our king, our people chose you, reminded Tajima. And I will serve them with all my power. This makes sure that they are still cared for no matter what, insisted Naruto without hesitation, earning a resigned nod from his father. Then let's pray that I don't have to enforce this decree under any circumstances, said Tajima, his unspoken command easily recognized by his son who hugged him. Tajima placed his hands around his son's back and hugged him back. They slowly parted ways after a few moments, but not before looking each other in the eye and nodding. Tajima watched the king march out of the room and never looked back once. Land of water. Tell your queen. Fire and bee will come to her lands when 15,000 humans will invade her home to see if it's really impenetrable. No sooner were those words said did the entire courtroom erupt into chaos. It was important to note that the 24 men and women in this room were the last remaining Otsutsuki and were ones who were far older than any human alive today, and yet after that declaration they just heard, many were angry, some were nervous, and only a few were silent, just like the woman sitting at the center of the room on a simple throne. She surprised her people with her smile. My queen, said one of her subordinates in surprise, unable to believe she was taking this threat lightly. Fear not, KG. I am well aware of the threat, but it simply amuses me that the boy king thinks he can defeat us with his pitiful army, said Hinata Otsutsuki calmly. We may outnumber him, but we must not forget that he is dangerous, warned Shinzo Otsutsuki. He was one of the few of his kind to survive an encounter with the young dragon. Shinzo had followed Lord Kimimaro, and their victory had been all but assured with the gigantic army, but when Naruto Uchiha's Kimimaro, the battle was over. Thousands of their thralls were hundreds more from the Kaguya, Hagoromo and Otsutsuki also fell that day. And that was not taking into account the thousands more they had lost during their most recent defeat. Naruto Uchiha is just a child with some luck, dismissed Hotaru Otsutsuki in her rich but soft feminine voice, earning a nod from their queen. He may be a child, but it does not change the fact that he has won almost every battle he has fought, argued Hiro Otsutsuki. He was the only one of his kind that was taken prisoner after the battle at the Fire Capital, and was the only one who had directly looked into Naruto Uchiha's eyes when the king had promised vengeance for what was done to his people. Hinata Otsutsuki was surprised to see her clansmen divided for the first time in their history. Even in their war with Indra and Ashura, they had not lost faith until they were utterly crushed. She got up from her seat, making the rest of them stand up as well out of respect. In silence, she walked towards the balcony of her palace from where she could clearly observe the sprawling city beneath her. It had taken her a long time and effort to rebuild the land of water after the defeat in the last war, but she had never given up. It had taken even more effort to persuade the other minor human clans to follow her leadership by citing the unstoppable threat that would arrive on Earth in the near future. It had taken so many years to build the army of so much hard work, so much patience, all of that undone by one man. More than a year ago, she had marched out with her entire army to conquer the human race and in time make them ready to face the entire Otsutsuki clan when they came to destroy Earth. She had everything in her power to achieve victory, yet the humans had resisted her fiercely. She had thought them to be weak and divided until the Uzumaki proved them wrong. Just when she was about to annihilate them for their insolence, the Dragon King, defying all her expectations, came to their aid. Hinata had watched him fight valiantly on the battlefield. No matter the foe he faced, he never gave up and fought with everything he had. It was his bravery and fierceness that inspired all those humans to keep on fighting. In that aspect, he was a very good military commander whose battle tactics had resulted into the deaths of thousands of Otsutsuki armed forces. More terrifyingly, Naruto Uchiha had managed to unite the human race under one banner, a task deemed impossible to achieve. He had defeated Kimimaro in single combat, another feat deemed impossible. Despite everything, Hinata found herself becoming more curious about this human to the extent that she now wanted to face him herself and see if he really was the man people thought that he was. Her clansmen had gathered around her and together they watched their own army residing in the city. I want to win this war, and the way I see It can only be achieved if we kill the young dragon. Tell me how we can make it happen, instructed Hinata firmly, earning nods from her people. My queen, he has already lost one of his Mangekyo which has weakened him, informed Hiro, having already seen the one-eyed king in person. He was pleased when that bit of information relived some of the tension his clansmen were feeling. Don't be so complacent. Not counting the Kyuubi, he still has 4-tailed beasts in his control. We made a terrible mistake when we lost them, warned Shinzo bitterly. Even their queen acknowledged that threat with a nod. It had been a terrible blow when Naruto captured those tailed beasts in his space-time dimension. Hinata could not deny the man's bravery of facing 4 of those monsters at once and his ingenious when he captured them with a smart move further weakening the Otsutsuki army's strength. She looked at 2 of her subordinates specifically. Kimimaro had strength but he was arrogant enough to underestimate the boy king and as a result he lost his head. But the same could not be said for the man's followers, Shinzo and Hayate. Both men were veterans of countless battles. Shinzo's self-awareness and ability to understand the enemy was an invaluable trait, while Hayate was a silent man, a proof being his stony silence during this entire conversation, but on the battlefield he was a different person, one who had no fear. Shinzo, what do you think the young dragon really intends to do? Asked Hinata curiously, earning a thoughtful look from her clansman. I think he's partially bluffing, my queen. He may have 15,000 men but those are the last fighters of his race. If he takes them all to assault the land of water and loses, then his race is doomed. If I know the young dragon, he would not be so foolish to leave his people defenseless in case of his defeat, advised Shinzo honestly. So he's even a bigger fool if he's bringing an even smaller force to attack us, mocked Hotaru, but froze when Hayate gave her a stony glare. What is it, Hayate? Demanded Hinata, as she saw the man had something on his mind. Shinzo is right, the young dragon is up to something nasty. He is smart enough to understand that he cannot conquer these lands even if he had a massive army at his back, so what options does that leave him with if he wants to win this war? Asked Hayate calmly, as he looked at his queen and fellow clansmen. Hinata's eyes slightly widened in surprise before a soft smile came on her lips. He's really bold, she thought with hidden admiration. He wants to kill me, answered Hinata, earning a grave nod from Hayate and surprised looks from the others. We'll kill him before he even reaches anywhere near you, my queen, promised Hotaru but was surprised when her queen shook her head. If I know him, then he has already planned his move for such a counteraction from us. I will have to face him, answered Hinata. My queen. Any other protests instantly when those icy white eyes glared at them all. I will face him, and I will look him in the eyes, and then I'll take his head myself. She was satisfied when all her clansmen silently accepted her decision with nods until she looked directly at Shinzo and Hayate. Shinzo, I leave the command of our forces to you. Hayate shall lead them in the field with the others supporting you both. Do not fail me, commanded Hinata coldly, as both men knelt in front of her respectively. I'll take command of our forces and reinforce our coast just in case if the young dragon is foolish enough to follow through with his threat of an invasion. We will crush his army before they even set foot on our lands, promised Hayate mercilessly. See that you do, ordered Hinata. I will oversee the deployment of hidden forces across our territory to prevent any infiltration bids. Hotaru, Hiro and the others shall command the respective squads. Together, we will stop the young dragon from reaching you, my queen, promised Shinzo confidently. He will reach me despite your best attempts, countered Hinata with a knowing smile, as she remembered the Uchiha's teleportation ability. We will stop. She dismissed any false promises with a sharp look at her clansmen. I will deal with him personally. Just make sure to stop any of the other human forces from interfering. Am I clear? She demanded. Hi, they all chorused in unison. She gave a final nod which was enough for her clansmen as they quickly left to carry out their assigned tasks, leaving her alone to observe the city beneath her. If she was being honest, Hinata found herself actually anticipating the upcoming battle. Naruto Uchiha had defied all her expectations and was an extremely unpredictable military commander which only made it more enticing for her. Let's see what you can do. Young dragon. Land of fire. Soon had heard the monstrous city bells ring loudly even as the morning rays of the sun slowly started to grace the snow-covered lands. Around her, she saw almost the entire city was awake with almost every human presently watching the small army waiting at the city gates. On the other side, a small fleet of ships full of warriors were also leaving the docks under the command of one veteran samurai leader. She saw Lord Tajima calmly staring at the 245 men and women currently dressed in battle armor and mounted upon the few wooden horses take positions behind the young one-eyed boy sitting atop a massive fox with numerous tails. Tajima watched Shisui approach the king. "My king, Mifune has departed with the fleet," informed Shisui, earning a nod from the king. "It's time then, Shisui," was all the king said, before he looked at the squads guarding the gate who instantly nodded and went to work. As the massive city gates started to be opened, Naruto allowed his lone Mangekyo to activate and create a massive dark portal right outside the gates. "Get ready." Shisui's bellowing battlecry was heard not just by the troops following him but also half the city as the king's army commander looked at the 245 men and women. They were a mixed group of people, starting from young boys and girls to veterans of war, from noble samurai of the north to the fierce fighters of the land of fire and so many more. It was a strange but beautiful picture of humanity being united, ignoring the clans or nations or ideologies these people belonged to. Shisui looked at his own two friends, Itachi and Mikoto, who nodded their approval as he unleashed his sword, making their small army do the same. Let us show the true power of humanity to the Otsutsuki bastards. The deafening roars of approval and victory given by the fighters echoed throughout the entire city, bringing small smiles and faint hopes in the defeated hearts of the people. Maybe these warriors would succeed where all of mankind had failed. It was all anyone could hope for. Naruto caught sight of Nagato Uzumaki placing a hand on his sister's shoulder in comfort and whisper something that made the worried Uzumaki female smile. That sight alone brought back painful memories for the king as he was reminded of a boy lost long ago. It also reminded him of another older boy whom the king dearly wished to be present here, but couldn't. But then he looked at his three friends who smiled at him, which brought back some of his lost confidence. He then looked at Kurama, who gave him a feral grin, earning a slight chuckle from the king in return. Finally, Naruto glanced at his father followed by his wife, both of whom gave him proud smiles. He looked at his wife's belly where his unborn son was resting. He remembered the promise he had given and it gave him the strength to unleash his sword and turn to face his men. His lone eye caught sight of the royal palace where Madara was resting before he turned back towards his men. He found himself at a loss of words, so he chose to say the only thing that felt right to him. For humanity. A thundering battlecry was unleashed by each and every warrior as the king mounted atop the fox turned forward towards the gates and the awaiting dark portal that would take them to a place from where no man had ever returned. Yet the king fiercely raised his sword as the fox started galloping towards the space portal without fear. Charge! That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.